and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today we are traveling again across the pond to Boston this time to speak to Richard Leader of FX HedgePool. Richard, how are you?
Pretty great, thanks, Toby. Pretty great. How are things back in the home country?
We are a drizzly day today, but I'm glad to say that this is probably the busiest day that I've seen back up in London in the last 14 months. So the world is slowly starting to open up over here. We miss you. Yeah, we're starting to get some sense of normality. And what about you? So, same thing over there?
It's a gorgeous spring day actually. The trees are blossoming or have blossomed. It's about 26 degrees I think outside. That's Celsius, not Fahrenheit. And yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm sorry that you're having a grey, drizzly day. Hopefully we'll be blowing some of that nice spring weather across the Atlantic to you guys.
I think we're all very ready for that over here. It's not quite caught us up yet. So look, loads and loads of stuff. We just had a great preamble and talking about everything that you guys are doing over there at the moment. I'm really interested to dive into a little bit more about the sort of detail of the business. But before we do that, can you give us a bit of background about yourself and the business, please?
Yeah, happy to do so. I'm Richard Leader. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and one of the co-founders of FX HedgePool, foreign exchange swap execution platform that we launched in January. As in, we went live with its first trades in January 2020. So it's been operational for about a year and a half to date. It probably makes sense if I give a bit of a background as to what foreign exchange swaps are and why we've detected this particular opening in the market, if that would be useful, Toby.
Definitely, I'd love that if you could.
Fantastic. Well, our client base are all asset managers, and asset managers typically hedge their unwanted currency risk. And what I mean by that is if you're an asset manager, if you're a portfolio manager, let's say at a big asset manager, let's say BlackRock, I'm just picking an asset manager that everyone knows, then you will invest your clients' money globally in all sorts of stocks, bonds, all types of securities and derivatives. You'll invest it in different strategies, all with the intention of generating return. You want to do well for your clients. Now, in this day and age, that entails investing it globally. So as well as investing it in stocks and bonds and anything else for that matter that are denominated in US dollars or euros or Japanese yen, you'll be investing it in securities that are denominated in a wide variety of currencies, including in many cases emerging markets currencies. Now, what you as a portfolio manager want is you want to be measured by the success of your investment strategies. You want to be measured by the success of your research, your analytics, all of the technical data that your colleagues have served to you. What you don't necessarily want a part of is whatever euro dollar or dollar yen chooses to do, or the value of the Thai baht, or the value of the Aussie dollar for that matter. This is generally what we call unwanted currency risk. Now, there are some asset managers who do want this risk. They specialize in the foreign exchange markets, but by and large, a lot of asset managers, they don't want any part of this. How they insulate themselves from this unwanted currency risk is that they hedge. And the way they hedge is typically by doing 1 month or 3 month foreign exchange forwards. So I'm going to pretend I'm a portfolio manager at BlackRock, again, just picking a street name. Let's say if I've got half of my portfolio invested in euro-denominated assets, that means I'm effectively long euro. So whether I like it or not, I've got exposure to the euro. So what I typically do in order to hedge that is I go out to a bank, let's say Goldman Sachs. I'm just picking a bank that everyone knows. And I typically say to Goldman, hey, I want to short the euro by an equal and opposite amount. So I basically do a foreign exchange forward, typically a 1 month or a 3 month forward or swap. And I do an equal and opposite one, and therefore I'm hedged. So if euro moves in my favor, it's fine because it balances it out. So there's no impact on my portfolio performance. Now, this is really key to understanding HedgePool. Asset managers typically go to the street to do this hedging. And there's a cost associated with that because banks, the foreign exchange desk in a large, well-resourced, highly successful bank like Goldman Sachs or Bank of America or JP Morgan for that matter, they've got a lot of technology, they've got a lot of personnel, they've got a lot of capital costs as well, because all of this foreign exchange market making and risk taking and risk transfer requires a lot of balance sheet usage. They've got a lot of compliance costs. There's a lot of cost built into the system. So the cost of, let's say, an asset manager, I'll stop saying BlackRock because I wouldn't want to imply they're a client, but the cost of, let's say, Vanguard, I'll use a different one. The cost of, say, Vanguard going out to the street to hedge this unwarranted currency risk, that can be fairly high. The cost of risk transfer is high. So what HedgePool has done is we have developed a system by which large asset managers can effectively hedge this currency exposure with each other. So Vanguard can face off against another asset manager, and effectively their opposing hedging positions can largely cancel each other out. So that's fundamentally what HedgePool does. It's a peer-to-peer matching service that allows Vanguard, who's hedging in one direction, to hedge against another asset manager who's going in the other direction, and thus the two hedging positions will largely offset each other, thus avoiding the need to necessarily go out to the street. Now, at risk of this becoming a horrendous monologue, I'll pause there for a second, Toby. Does that make sense?
It does completely, and I think it's a really fascinating area. And one of the things I've loved over this last year of speaking to people about their businesses, and this is looking for the sort of common traits of high performing businesses over this period. And I love those who are looking at inefficiencies and problems in the marketplace and basically creating a better way of doing business, which I guess is exactly what you've just spoken about, really, isn't it? It's looking at the marketplace and saying, right, how can we make this more efficient? A lot of the on-trend stuff is to say remove the friction from the process of all of these things, right, and create a better way of doing business.
I'm so sorry, Toby. I'm so excited. You touch upon a number of very, very key points there. And number one, it's the quest to take cost out of the system. So in just the same way that Expedia allows me to, do a bunch of price discovery and ticket buying in a way that's far more efficient than popping down to, say, the travel agents would have been. I've got nothing against travel agents.
It's you now.
But I'll be at the back in row 50 next time. But in just the same way that Expedia has trimmed a bunch of cost out of the airline ticketing and booking system, we are seeking to do that for asset managers. Now, with asset managers, it's very, very, very personal because the end owners, the beneficial owners of these assets, these units and these funds and ETFs are people like you and me and everyone who has a retirement account or a 401k or pension. We are all the ultimate end beneficial owners. So anything that we can do to effectively trim cost out of the system in our way by reducing the cost that these asset managers incur by doing their routine hedging operations, then ultimately at the margins that ultimately benefits us as the end beneficial owners. So I don't want to use the cliche making the world a better place because it'll sound like an episode of Silicon Valley, but we are genuinely motivated by allowing these asset managers that manage all of our assets to, on a personal level, to allow these guys to conduct business more efficiently. So there's a bit of a personal crusade element to it as well.
As there should be with any sort of business that someone's launching. We'll come on to that in a minute. I really want to talk through the sort of journey that you guys have been on through that. And I think any good story starts with the crusade, right, in terms of where we're going. But I think, when I've just been listening to that sort of process improvement, the cost reduction, the friction reduction, the ease of digital transformation is a oft used word, but the ability for people to do things better and improve processes to increase speed, remove clunkiness in a process, to me seems to be the sort of golden characteristics of a business that's going to work. The other thing that comes into that of a business that's going to work, unsurprisingly, and probably thankfully for it to be in my main line of work in recruitment, is very much around people, and people starts with the founding team and that sort of passion and purpose that you spoke about there at the start. Let's go down on a trip down memory lane. So I think this has been a really interesting thing. You said it went live in January 2020, right? So what an incredible time to be going live with something just as the calm before the storm. Tell us a little bit about the immediate journey. Then let's scroll back a little bit before that to go live with something as seismic there, with the hope and aspiration of moving into a new year, and then being sucker punched with what's happened. Have you turned that sort of potential problem into a positive as a business?
Oh, it was just astonishing. I mean, you don't need me to say that. I think everyone, anywhere on the planet would have said it's been quite remarkable. But for the timing was lucky for us, and I mean that in the sense that it could have been very, very bad had things all kicked off just a few months earlier. We thank our lucky stars, Toby, that we were able to get live, get out the door, get out the gates prior to the maelstrom as COVID-19 kicking off. You know as well as we do that business is ultimately all comes down to getting ink on paper, and getting companies, big complex organizations to progress contracts and agreements through their internal processes. Now, I was so glad that we were largely doing that in the lead up to COVID happening, rather than trying to do that when COVID was kicking off, because we're not the whole financial industry, all the associated bits of it around it, such as us, such as Toby, you guys, we were all plunged into an unknown world of working from home. It wouldn't be correct to say that wasn't without its challenges. It was. Entire massive banks and other financial institutions had to all suddenly learn how to do their jobs from their kitchen tables, or their breakfast bars. So we felt very lucky that we managed to get live and do all the work that was necessary to get live, because we were in development for the base version of the product. The minimum viable product, as we like to call it, was in development since April 2019. So we had a good run up. So yeah, we thank our lucky stars we were able to properly get live prior to work from home becoming a thing. It might have set us back 9 months had it not.
I think it's one of those sort of difficult things there, isn't it? Where I sort of felt you're saying the right thing sometimes, isn't it? Around what's acceptable to say about where luck's involved in the last year for people. And I speak to a number of different companies who've sort of ridden the storm over the last year and actually turned this negative into a positive. And look, every business has been fortunate or unfortunate at various stages through this sort of period. And I've said it, that we're very lucky to be in such a robust area in this at this sort of time. There's friends of mine who've had businesses that have pointed at travel or hospitality or whatever it may be, that found it far more difficult to navigate than we have. And timing is a no matter how great your team is or how great your product is, there's always an element of timing that's important to have on your side as well. But I think it doesn't necessarily what I love about talking to businesses that have started up at the sort of time or launched products at the sort of stage that you had, is it becomes a very, very interesting sort of case study to say that if you can come through that sort of period and do well from it, it augurs extraordinarily well, not only for the future, but it says a big story about that sort of initial team and the viability of the product and the reason for being in the first place. So let's move backwards a little bit further and say, look, there is a core team of you who dreamt up this beautiful project, this great idea. Take us around the kitchen table or the barroom mat or whatever it may have been from where this started, and tell us a little bit about why FX HedgePool came into being in the first place.
Well, delighted to do so, and thank you very much for asking. So, in my life prior to HedgePool, I worked with one of the other HedgePool co-founders, FX HedgePool co-founders, Emin Tartosian. We set up a fintech back in 2014, and we were working in financial markets technology prior to then, effectively doing a sell side to buy side e-commerce for all sorts of interesting banks around the world, building these Amazon.com style shop fronts to expose their foreign exchange businesses to their customers. So effectively building point and click type price discovery, execution, allocation engines, effectively front office foreign exchange trading technologies. So we were already, Emin and I already had a background in foreign exchange. Now, the delightful thing about our company, FastFin, which we set up to be an innovation incubator, the delightful thing about that is that put us on into the beam of all sorts of interesting individuals in the capital markets who had real pain points or were aware of real pain points and could absolutely see ways to make the capital markets much more efficient. And we greatly enjoyed working on all sorts of projects, and we came into contact with Mr. Jay Moore, who is our other co-founder. We came into contact with him. Now, he had a very currency hedging centric background. He worked in currency hedging all of his career at State Street initially, where he set up and ran their currency administration unit, and later at another very venerable Wall Street firm, Brown Brothers Harriman. And so Jay's background is effectively senior capital markets, but with a currency hedging focus. Now, Emin and I had also gained experience of currency hedging as well, and gained on in various contexts. And we came into contact with Jay Moore, and as entrepreneurs tend to do when they start to collaborate, we very quickly realized over a period that actually there's a business to be set up here and run. Now, as is always the case when you start these things, it initially has a slightly different form to the form it subsequently takes. Initially, we envisaged a fairly different type of company. For example, initially, we thought, okay, we are effectively going to be challenging the banks. Therefore, we thought initially, our assumption was that the banks might view this FX HedgePool entrant, this peer-to-peer entrant, as with some suspicion. We thought initially maybe the banks will react negatively to a new firm coming along and disintermediating them. And we were astonished to learn, or we learned over time, that actually some of the banks were actually really quite keen on this for what turned out to be a fairly logical reason, because there's a large clutch of banks around the world who I would term as kind of dominant regional players, who are exceptionally good at what they do in terms of pricing, in terms of foreign exchange, pricing currency trades in their own home currency. There are lots of Canadian banks, for example, who are dominant in dollar CAD. And a lot of these institutions have, and there are similar banks around the world. There are many Japanese banks of that size, French banks, British banks as well, all of whom we now have represented on FX HedgePool's panel of banks. We have representatives from each of these markets. And it turned out that rather than greeting us with hostility, or rather than perceiving us as a threat, they actually saw us as an economic opportunity, which was a delightful discovery. And the reason for that is that there are many banks around the world who, by their own admission in the foreign exchange world, will be much stronger contenders in specific currency pairs, such as dollar CAD in the case of the various five or six excellent Canadian banks. But when it comes down to the G10 currency pairs, maybe aren't quite as competitive as the big US-based money center banks, the JP Morgans, the Goldman Sachses, the Citis of this world. So we've actually found some very valuable allies in this group of large dominant regional players, I would call them. Other people might say tier two, but I'd prefer to refer to them as the dominant regional players. So we have on our panel of banks.
Sounds a lot nicer, that, doesn't it?
We're delighted to have them on board, because effectively we went from initially almost a prime brokerage model where we had in the center common counterparty who our members would face off against, but we found very quickly as we grew the business, and we transacted since inception, we've matched around $2 trillion worth of flow on our platform, which we're delighted at, and that continues to grow by a sizable chunk with each and every monthly roll cycle.
That's massive.
I really appreciate you saying that. It's been a bit of it's felt like a stellar journey so far, and the team is now up to about 20 people, which we find very satisfying, considering that just 2 years ago it was basically 3 guys on a whiteboard. So that's quite satisfying. We are finding that the market for the type of talent that we look to attract is extremely tight, and I expect you guys at Harrington Starr are finding that as well.
Absolutely.
Key talents, particularly on the technology side and capital markets, is very difficult to come by. But one of the advantages to having FastFin prior to FX HedgePool was that we had a ready formed technology team, and not just some individuals who we'd hired and put together in a team and tried to see whether they worked, and some don't work out, and then you have churn. No, this was a preformed unit of expert engineers who all were comfortable working together. They'd worked together for some years previously, worked on numerous projects. So we had effectively a ready to go Porsche design team effectively. a
Perfect.
McLaren racing team ready just to go and spin up FX HedgePool. So that benefited us greatly, because in the world of software development, you can do, if you've got an elite special forces team, you can just do so much more with an elite platoon of, say, SAS than you could do with a whole whole regiment, a whole battalion of conscripts, so to speak. Please excuse the military references. I was briefly in the territorial army in the UK for a while. So
Do you know what? I love that though. As you can see, many of the books behind me are based around military history and the lessons that you can take from either sport, business, or military. And I think that's sort of, that analogy. I often talk about sort of special forces units and the ability to put those in place, and how much you can get. My whole belief system revolves around putting the right team in place and building around that with far more productivity from it. And I love that sort of analogy that you were talking about there. It makes a lot of sense to me.
you can just get so much more done. And Emin Tartosian and I, who prior to HedgePool had worked together for a full decade, even prior to HedgePool, we had repeated experience of technology projects in the capital markets. Some would be on a totally different level of speed, efficiency, and capability to others. We have, for better or worse, during our time in capital markets technology prior to FastFin as well, when we worked for a London-based fintech, we saw some astonishingly well-run projects, and we also saw some projects that I would possibly find it a bit more difficult to describe as astonishingly well run. So we were able to use this great big learning experience as a way of really honing our ability to build products. And it goes a lot deeper than simply the engineering. Obviously, the engineering has to be absolutely spot on, but it runs deeper into right through to the ideation and design stages. You have to have a keen eye for what is going to give you bang for buck before spending your development calories. You have to really have a sort of practiced sense of what really does constitute a minimum viable product, the term I used earlier, because a lot of time is wasted in the capital markets in IT projects, developing things that either the users aren't going to want, or are going to be too complex for the users to really get to grips with, or simply things where you burn a lot of your calories on doing things that are frankly low value, and you miss out on some of the things that are really, really high value. So it's that sort of, Emin and I tried to bring to HedgePool, and we think we largely did, a sort of Silicon Valley eye for how to get stuff out the door and bring it into the sometimes more sort of staid world of Wall Street capital markets IT. So we like to think that we've brought a bit of business at the speed of thought, to use a now ancient Microsoft saying, to the world of Wall Street IT.
I love that, and you're right. It's the beauty of Wall Street IT, and the whole world of capital markets technology, to me, has been something where inefficiency has been disruptible by speed and precision, and the ability to sort of really focus in on that has allowed companies to do it. And that's always driven by highly skilled teams who work seamlessly together with strong communication, collaboration, and the right sort of people. And I think if you've had that, I love that sort of the McLaren analogy, the Porsche design analogy of having that team in place there, and what a truly significant trading advantage that gives any business to be set up. Because if you haven't got that, particularly over the last year, I think it's been very perishable.
I couldn't agree more, and I do apologise to your viewers. It may sound a tiny bit presumptuous comparing ourselves to the most successful motor racing team in the history of mankind, but we like to think that we've achieved a lot of heavy lifts on a very
100%.
lean budget. Yeah, we're hopefully raising the bar for all concerned. But you mentioned the term disrupt or disruptive. We like to think of ourselves not as disruptors, because nobody likes the concept of disruption when it concerns your assets, your capital. It's sort of a nay laughing matter, so to speak. But what we have done is we've taken a very deliberately low barrier to entry approach, where we've made it possible for FX HedgePool members And just to return to the core topic here, these being asset managers who use FX HedgePool to hedge their currency exposure, thus reducing the cost of risk transfer. We've made it very, very easy for these members to get on board. And because one of the things that each of us, Emin and I in particular, as well as Jay, had experienced time and time again is how long IT projects can take, particularly when they involve dependencies such as integration. You could have the best product in the world, but if it requires 50 people in investment banks to agree on something where their typical hobby out of work is not agreeing with each other on anything ever, then your product is going to spend a long time actually getting to market. In fact, it'll probably just wither on the shelf. We've seen superb products that didn't get and worked with superb products that didn't get anywhere like the market penetration they warranted, simply because you've got to perform a massively long IT project. So what we did with HedgePool is we tried to make it as easy as possible for our members to get onboarded. So we've got almost a zero effort integration option for those who simply don't have any stomach for integrating with their portfolio management systems or their execution systems. And also we've got a sliding scale where they can slide the scale all the way up to full-blooded integration with the various investment management solutions out there, the likes of BlackRock's Aladdin, State Street's Charles River, Castle, and many more besides, and also all of the order management systems such as FX All and the various FX Connect and all of these other conduits. So we've kind of got the integration light option, but then the slider can slide all the way up to the full sort of a fully automated integration option, which then, to your point earlier, Toby, really allows you to really leverage some of the workflow efficiency, cost savings by trimming out inefficiency from the system.
Love that. So we've spoken about the origins, we've spoken about the present. What comes next? Let's finish by talking about the future. What's next for you guys?
Well, we're adding capabilities at a rate of knots. So we started off by doing these 1 month rolls, FX swaps. We've now added 3 month rolls, which to basically align with the IMM dates. So now we can support hedgers who roll on a 3 month cadence. We're in the process of fairly advanced stages of cultivating liquidity pools in various other emerging markets currencies, the likes of the Indian rupee, the Thai baht. We're also doing NDFs as well. So we're looking these being non-deliverable forwards for currency pairs such as dollar real, the Brazilian currency. Emin and I actually spent a stint working in Brazil as well, so we've got a bit of an emerging markets tint to it. But we're also so we're adding new pools literally every roll. We're also looking at doing even more high frequency rolls as well. So we're looking at doing monthlies, possibly even all the way up to daily or ad hoc liquidity events. We've built this nice versatile engine through the capabilities of the tech team. They've built a very capable underlying platform that can basically support whatever we really want to do. So the world of buy side to buy side matching doesn't necessarily need to stop at 1 month or 3 month FX swaps. We can segue into other areas as well. So we've got a ever broadening roadmap of cool technology capabilities we want to get out there. But really the core sort of the core focus at the moment is just we've been very fortunate by having some really strident advocates out there in the market. I mentioned Vanguard. I'm delighted to say, and I can actually say this because they've been immensely supportive since day one. They are a client. They've been, just extremely, glowing in everything that they've said about us. They've been very, very helpful to date in us getting to where we've got to. But I'm equally happy that we've now got a thriving and buzzing sales team who we've built over the last 12 months, who are now bringing in new members at a dizzying rate as well. In North America, Europe. We've recently established an Asia Pacific footprint as well. So the next 12 months is going to be one of just relentless focus on just bringing new members onto the platform and in doing so, kind of enlarging the network effect benefit that our existing members get through their maximizing their matching potential. Sorry, Toby, that's a very long answer to a short question.
I tell you what, though, what a great answer to a short question on the top of it. I absolutely love that, and it's you might have seen a sort of smirk sort of growing across my face. I just love people who are talking passionately about their excitement for what's happening in the future of the business, and testament to businesses, to you. The business such as Vanguard, who I think are an extraordinary company, are speaking so glowingly about the work you've done for them as well. So I've loved this conversation. I've loved the fact that we're talking there about a business that's absolutely solving the right sort of problems in the right sort of way, and reaping the benefits of that. And to have done it in such a difficult time, I think is, as I said before, is absolute kudos to you and the team who've done, who are clearly doing a brilliant job. So, Richard, it's been nothing other than an absolute pleasure hearing that story, and I love doing it. And I look forward to hopefully having you back on the show in the not too distant future, where we can talk about how that sort of developed and that phase two really coming to the fore and into action. It's a very, very exciting time for you in the business.
Well,
Is there a best way for people to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, or even better, go to fxhedgepool.com. Sounded like I'm doing a political fundraiser now.
Please
and
do.
And hit contact us. We're on a serious note. Toby, thank you very much for having me on your show today. It's greatly appreciated. And it's also very, 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 very good to sync up generally as regards how you guys are doing. Wish you guys every success, as I'm sure you will. You will do in the months ahead, as the economy really whirs back into even greater levels of activity. Greatly looking forward to syncing up in London or New York at the next opportunity. But if anyone would like to know more about HedgePool, whether you're a market participant or an intern looking to gain experience, or frankly to someone who's interested in fintech generally and not necessarily from a hedging background, just reach out to us. Hit our contact us button. We're always delighted to share knowledge. The citadel of knowledge that is the financial markets sometimes isn't great at sharing, but we're all very open people who are more than happy to share knowledge about our particular domain. So just hit us up, and we can look to collaborate in one way, shape, or form.
Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure, and as you say, I can't wait to get back out there to the States, and I shall look forward to meeting in person. It's been a great one to do over Zoom, but soon, hopefully, it will be something a little bit more personal from that as well. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for sharing such wisdom, insight, and I've been educated. I've got my hedging 101. I'll move on to the next phase of it next. Thanks so much for joining us.
Toby, thanks ever so much for having me. It's greatly appreciated.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks very much.